Thanks, Rich, for an opportunity to just share in this beautiful community. I've gotten so many wonderful nuggets on my spirituality over the years being a part of this community, this beautiful community. I, it's a privilege for me to get to share anything that I have to say. I'm very humbled by it, and I'm excited about all the great things you all have going over there at your beautiful new location. It's just so wonderful. So, when I was thinking about, got the invitation, I was thinking about what would I share? And little did I know that Katie was going to pick a song that really was really about where where I've been. And so, those of you that know me, you know that my heart is really big and I care. I care a lot about people. I care about what's happening in the world. I care about what's happening in our country. I care about what's happening in my community. And I had been feeling a little weighted down by all of those cares. And so the song words, and Katie, thanks for introducing me to that song. That's my song now. Thank you. Really shared so much about what I was feeling. Um, but the way that this topic came about, lesson from flowers, um, I love the spring and the summer, and I'm always amazed when springtime comes, how there are certain flowers that come up. You don't have to tell them to come up. You don't have to tell them start growing. You don't have to make them do anything. They do what they were created to do. And so I know when it's getting ready to be springtime because I see the crocuses. I know it's getting ready to be Easter time. Because what? I see the Easter lilies. I know when it's going to be cherry blossom time. Why? Because the cherry blossoms begin to bloom and no one's praying over them, no one is speaking to them. They just do what they were created to do. And so, as I was thinking about doing what I was created to do, um, the word flowers just kept coming to me. And when something continues to speak to me, it's always a sign for me that I need to take some time and really get still and hear what's being spoken to me. And so since COVID-19, I've kept fresh flowers in my home. When the ones die, I go right out and get some more. And I've been doing this since 2020. And I started only because we were locked down and I wanted some beauty from the outside inside. So I was like, what can I do? And I was like, oh, flowers. So I started buying flowers and I keep fresh flowers in my home. But this year, it was a little different for me in having the flowers. I kept hearing the word flowers. So my mother came to me, and those of you who don't know my story, as Rich mentioned, we lost our mother 1 month exactly after my 17th birthday. And there were two flowers that our mother loved, and that was the tulip and the rose. And so for the last few years, I've been going to a tulip farm in April because her birthday is in April. And I go to the tulip farm and I pick tulips. But something really interesting happened to me this April. As I was walking and looking at the tulips, I could literally feel my mother's presence with me. And it caused me to just look around. And as I looked around, I was like, what are you speaking to me about? I sensed that my mother sensed the heaviness I had been carrying. And so her presence was so evident that day. I picked the tulips. I went and sat and looked out at the beautiful fields. And I was asked to speak for Mother's Day at my church. And I said, I'm going to talk about flowers. and the lessons I've been learning since April about flowers. And so the passage of scripture that was read was the scripture that came to me. And I continue to search the scriptures, says, uh, the part about, um, go back to it. And why do you worry about clothes? See how the flowers of the field grow? I felt that was speaking to me. Cheryl, why are you worrying about all of these things that's wearing you down? They do not labor or spin. I went, flowers do not labor or spin. It took me right back to thinking about how flowers do what they were created to do. They come up, they're not striving, they're not working hard, they just do what they were created to do. Yet I tell you that not even Solomon, in all of his splendor, was dressed like one of these. And so it led me to think about, to search the scriptures and get more understanding about flowers. And as I did that, it was very interesting to me how um, the rose was the first flower that I came upon, the rose. And that's found in, I'll tell you where, in Isaiah 35:1. And it says, I am the rose of Sharon and the lily of the valleys. And so as I study, the rose means restoration, joy, rejuvenation. And I said to myself, Cheryl, that's exactly what you need. That's exactly what you need. So the lesson from the rose was telling me that God had already provided for me what I need. And in this time in my life, it's through flowers. And then I looked up crocus because I love that flower. And it talks about, it represents joy, hope, and renewal. And so there I was worrying, but God had already provided everything that I need. For this time in nature is through flowers. Then I looked up lilies, and lilies are, I'm flipping through my papers here. They are, they bring hope, lilies, hope. So I was like, I was losing my hope, but God had provided the lilies, the Easter lily, the beautiful lily plant, to show me that He has provided hope for me. So again, I kept asking, Cheryl, what are you worrying about? What are you happy about? You love flowers. And then I read about the myrtle, and it means peace and restoration. And that God promises restoration. So, what this time has been for me is a restoring of my faith, a restoring of my hope, my joy, my peace, even though I was spending some time in worry. And so now I go out and I get fresh flowers. I just bought fresh flowers into my home last week. They're just not beauty. They're just not flowers I cut and put in all my different vases because I have them all over the place. But now I see them and I'm like, God, you're speaking to me. You're encouraging me through flowers that there is hope, there is restoration, there is peace, there is joy. So I don't have to walk around feeling heavy, feeling sad, feeling hopeless. And so those are the lessons that I have learned just in this last month of 6 weeks or so about how flowers speak to me and how that song really talked about he uses the seeds and the watering can to really bring joy to us and peace to us. So I hope when you look at flowers now, that you just don't see the beauty, but you actually see God speaking to you, and you actually see his peace, and you actually sense his peace, his joy, his hope, his wisdom, his kindness, regardless of what is happening in the world all around us. So thank you for this opportunity to share my lesson from flowers.
Well, thank you so much, Cheryl, for that. Uh, the I love that you took the correspondence of something we see in the physical world and saw the spiritual dimensions to it, and was also touched by the role in your own life, the losing your mother at a young age and having her come and comfort you in among the flowers because you were doing something to remember her is a lesson in itself, that if we can remember and keep in mind those who have passed are not with us right now, they are actually working on our behalf as angels, and you've got all this wisdom from that. So I'm going to kick off the first question, then I'll open it to everybody else. My question is this. It's a question I get a lot. So you say we shouldn't worry about things because Jesus said don't worry about things, but things are going to hell in a handbag right now. And what am I supposed to do? Disconnect from current events? How can I, as a good citizen, not worry? So, I mean, that's a very common question that I would get, particularly for our, I would say, a DC-based crowd that seems to is like maybe like wired into the news constantly. What's your response to that? Do you have any thoughts on that?
You have thoughts on that, Rich, and some of it's because what I feel like I've been challenged to do. So I felt God was saying to me, turn your worrying into action. And so I looked for organizations that I could support that was doing the work and the causes that I believe in, that align with my values. Just making that decision to that, hope began to fill me again. It is because I wasn't just sitting and worrying and not doing anything. And so I felt a call to action through that. And then it caused me to heighten my spiritual walk and tested me. And what do I really believe? What do I really believe? We're going to worry. We're going to be sad. We're going to have all of those emotions because we are human beings. Jesus had emotions. He said he was touched by our infirmities. So we don't ignore them. But what decision do we make to not allow it to become heaviness for us versus finding joy, versus taking action in some way, versus just sitting and sulking in it? And I had to just turn away from the news because I'm a heart person. So I can't hear the news 24/7. I need to hear it to know what's going on, and then I have to release it. So I felt that it was on me to find the way to action to help me sitting in this space. So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, it's beautifully practical too. Some of the things we can do and can't do, and support what we can. But also, we need to disconnect to the 24/7 stream that can be that's purposely disruptive and chaotic, and not fall prey to it. Good. I have another question, but I want to see if anybody else has a question, so I don't dominate. Katie.
Cheryl, thank you so much for your sermon. I loved it. I love you. I love the idea of keeping fresh flowers in your house. I think it's just such a great act of self-care. I don't really have a question, but I had an experience in this past week and I was thinking about you and I knew that your sermon was going to be lessons from flowers. I didn't know exactly what the message would be yet, but I was walking one day after school and I was going to go meet Mr. Benzer for some oysters after school. And I only had to walk a few blocks and I was going to get there a lot earlier than he was. So even though it was raining, I was kind of like taking my time walking. And when I was walking on the street, I saw this little batch of flowers and I was just kind of looking at like how the rain was hitting the petals and how they looked so beautiful. Even though it was raining, I didn't care. I had my jacket on. I was just enjoying them. And this is not hyperbole. This is not an exaggeration at all. But right after I was finished looking at the flowers, I walked a few more steps and this giant tree branch fell on the sidewalk right in front of me, and it didn't hit me at all. But it was this massive tree branch, and this was right outside of my school, so all the kids were like freaking out, like how lucky that I got. So I took that personally as a message that you should take a few moments to look at the flowers, enjoy them, kind of like the story of Ferdinand example to stop and smell the roses. So. Yeah, thank you because it gave me the opportunity to just think about it more and stop and look at the flowers. So,
Thank you so much, Katie, for sharing that. That's beautiful.
Thank you, Katie. Any other questions or comments?
Yeah,
Betty?
yes. Cheryl, I loved your sermon, and I wanted to ask you when you said did you say that you felt your mother's presence?
I
And that's what
felt
drew
her
you.
presence.
It's
Yes,
an actual physical presence, isn't it? Because,
yes,
I do the same thing.
yes.
My husband passed away about 3 years ago, and he's my dearest friend. And this year, for some time, right around this time, he's been coming to me a lot. And it's actually his mannerisms and everything that are coming from me. And so I know I'm really in touch and that he has something important to let me know or to tell me. So when you said you heard or felt your mother's presence, that's what prompted my question because I was really interested in how other people feel that as well.
Thank you so much, Betty, for sharing that. For so many years, I wouldn't tell people that
Oh,
because I didn't know
I
how
don't
people were
either.
going to respond
I don't
to
either.
that. And my mother's been gone 55 years now, and so early on, I would have lots of visitations from her. But as
Right.
years passed, I wouldn't get as many.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
for me to have had that experience that day, it was so real. It
Yeah.
was just so real. And so I've learned to share it because I never know who else may be going through the same thing. And thank you for sharing that. And you love every visitation that you have.
I
Yeah,
do. I feel his hand sometimes because we walk hand in hand. And I feel his hand in my hand. And there's that closeness that you just can't beat. And it's not something you're making up because you
that's right.
feel it. It's
That's
so
right.
real. You know that.
Very
And it's
real.
always a
Yes.
message from spirit. It always is. My
Yes.
husband was a Swedenborgian minister. And it's always a message from spirit. And it's so much
Yes.
fun deciphering it, trying to figure out like you did with your mother and the flowers and everything. So I
That's
really enjoyed
beautiful.
that. Thank you so,
Thank you
so much.
so much for sharing that, Patty. It's
You're
beautiful.
welcome.
Any other questions or comments?
I'll go briefly, just mentioning a brief experience I had going through a coaching program where one of the first assignments we had was to coach a plant. And as a person who lives very much in my head, I thought this is the craziest thing I've ever done. But it turned out to be incredibly insightful because the assignment literally forced you to sit down and start noticing things and then drawing analysis or metaphors about what is it you noticed. It wasn't about coaching a plant. It was more about realizing what you focus on and the meaning you put behind it. So thinking about, okay, I notice the veins in the plant. How incredible it is that this little living thing is so resilient and provides life and provides beauty, and how can I apply that to my own life? So it was for a person who is a bit of a skeptic and who lives in her head sometimes, this was an incredibly eye-opening experience. So thank you, Cheryl, for sharing your insights on that today.
And I so appreciate that, Katarina, because that's the other word that's been resonating within me. It's notice. We're so busy. We're always running, doing things, good things, but we don't really take enough stillness time to just notice. And that's the other word that's really resonating with me, to just take time to notice. Notice the people around me, notice nature, notice me, notice how I'm being at any given time, moment. So that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, and when you take Cheryl's message and you add it to Katie's message, it's like you better stop and notice because the branch is going to come down on your head if you're not stopping. And so it's a beautiful metaphor. I know I did breath work, which I would love to do here at the Swedenborg House at some point. And it was pretty much almost like a psychedelic experience, and I went into a whole different realm. And in that, my mother said to me, "You're to be of use, but not to be abused." And that just, because I use that phrase, I want to be of use. But the message was, you've got to stop. You can't just keep running. You've got to stop. Don't abuse yourself. Again, it's like a sermon about how our mothers are communicating to us. And I was also struck, one other thing, in Kelly's group on Jesus Christ Superstar, there was a big debate this week about the story of Mary and bringing the ointment for Jesus, and Judas saying, why are you wasting this perfume on this guy? It could be used for the poor. And some of the people in the group that were discussing it were pretty much like, yeah, I kind of agree with Judas. Like, shouldn't a community be focused on the poor, not on wasting? And what I was struck with in the verse was that Jesus was saying, sometimes the impractical and the beautiful and the good is what is the most important. Flowers are not practical. Cut flowers are not practical. They're expensive, they will die, but they're beautiful. They give off a beautiful smell for a period. And I think we all need to be reminded in our culture that's so utilitarian, that everything has to add up, make sense, calculated, that there's beauty that can't be commodified. And so I'm inspired. I've been putting flowers in my home, but I'm now inspired with Mr. Jimmy, who is Jimmy's the flower expert in Church of the Holy City. He even has an email that's Jimmy for Flowers. Yeah, because he does such great work with flowers for weddings and for the community. He did a flower design party here at Valentine's Day. And but Jimmy, we need flowers in Swedenborg House. Yeah, I don't know if you can hear him. Jimmy just said he's speechless because he's so moved by the discussion today.
I'd like to share something.
Alpha, please.
Yeah, well, the pansies, right? You all know pansies. Pansies, the flowers. They come in so many varieties. And in German, they're called little stepmothers. And I had a stepmother, and so she was as beautiful as the pansies. So I love pansies everywhere. And I know how hardy they are. They start blooming in Washington, the moment the weather turns like a February, sometimes you have pansies in the flower pots in the streets. So I think that's a beautiful metaphor. I love pansies. I love my little stepmother.
Yes, that's beautiful, Alpha.
Beautiful.
Yes.
And she loved flowers in the house. And my father grew every flower that would grow in his garden. And he would always bring her bunches. Little ones,
Beautiful.
big ones, whatever grew in his garden.
That's beautiful.
Mhm.
Can I just add one last thing? So
Of
the
course.
other thing that happened to me was a song that I used to hear growing up, and it was called Give Me My Flowers While I Live, so I can see the beauty that they bring. And it caused me to reach out to some of the people that have been in my life some time ago, but impacted my life. And I've reached out to them and said, I just want to give you some flowers of words of appreciation and of gratitude. And so I just want to bring that into this too. It's like, who do we need to give words of flowers to just for gratitude, for thankfulness. So just wanted to add that part as well.
It's beautiful. Well, I think you've given us some good assignments, Cheryl. Two things. If you can, get flowers in your house this week, if you don't have them already. And second, if there's somebody you're grateful to in your life, take the time to share the flowers and tell them how important they are in your life. Because I find that people are starved to hear that, and it can make a huge difference.
Mhm.
So with that, we're going to thank Cheryl so much for her wisdom and for her sharing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.